Tone is in the hands. Something that has been bouncing around guitar forums and comment sections for decades now. The idea being that great guitar sound only comes down to the player and their hands, how you play and approach the guitar. And I don't totally disagree with that, but I also do kind of disagree with that. And to back up this point, most people that say this will point to players like Jack Pearson, for example, guys that are known for playing cheap guitars into whatever amp is backlined on stage and admittedly have some of the best guitar tone that you can find today. I've seen Jack live several times and I can attest to the fact that he actually is one of the best sounding guitar players out there. But it's also not just in the hands. Tone is in the speakers. It's in the pickups, it's in the strings, it's in the cables, it's in the tubes, the tone stack of your amplifier, it's in the pedals, it's in the power supply that you choose for your pedals. It's kind of everywhere. And in today's video, we're gonna talk about that. Why I think you should stop saying tone is in the hands. So the way I like to think about guitar sound and guitar tone is almost like a painting. There's sort of two elements to it. There's the color choice that you make, but then there's also the brush stroke. And then there's also the brush choice, or maybe you don't paint with a brush at all. Maybe you paint with your fingers or any other kind of tool. And the way I think about color is like the note choice or the chord choice or how we choose to voice a chord or the lines that we play, the licks that we play, where we play them on the neck, even how we're picking the notes on the guitar. So as an example, like if I play this G sharp minor chord here, this is gonna be one specific color that I choose. Now I can alter this color in several different ways. I can change it by adding an extension. I can make it a G sharp minor 9 chord. I can play little pentatonic flourishes around it to sort of decorate the chord, if you will. I can change the tone even more by choosing how and where I'm picking on the guitar. Moving back towards the bridge to get a more woody, plucky sound, or moving closer to the neck to get a more round sound. So far, these are all examples of tone in the hands, right? I'm changing the sound of the guitar. I'm changing how it sits based off of my color choice, my chord voicings, how I'm decorating the chords, and I'm also changing the sound based on how I'm playing, where I'm playing on the guitar, whether I'm using a pick or my fingers. This is all tone in the hand stuff. But listen to what happens if I just flip this switch back here. That's a completely different sound, a completely different tone, almost a completely different color altogether, just because I turned on the bridge pickup out of phase with the neck pickup. That's not in my hands. My hands had nothing to do with that shift in tone. That's this guitar specifically. Let's try it with a different guitar. We take my Les Paul, for example, and we'll even use the middle position with both humbuckers on all together. Check this out. Those are two completely different sounds that have nothing to do with my hands. Those tones could not be farther apart while both being electric guitars played into the same amp, which is my 64 Princeton Reverb hand-wired here. That's not my hands making that sound. Even on the same guitar, the Mustang, I can get completely different sounds based off of the brush choice, if you will. And as a result, these are gonna have a completely different effect if we use these different sounds in the context of a mix. In fact, let's try that. So to drive this point home a little further, let me give you another example of tone not being in the hands. Obviously, that's not a sound I can get with just the Strat and the Princeton. I need a fuzz. And the fuzz I'm using is the Black Drone Wasp from Jex Telez. But the point I'm trying to make here is that there's certain sounds that you can only get with certain pieces of gear. A guitar and an amplifier like this is just not capable of good fuzz sounds. So that's not in the hands. But in order to sort of get the most out of a sound like this, you do have to have the hands for it. When you're using this much fuzz in a sound like this, you have to have a lot of control between your left hand and your right hand to get the proper muting and to get the proper sounds that you're looking for out of it. So as an example, if I'm playing a riff like in E minor here, something like this. I've got to be super conscious of my muting between my left hand and my right hand because I don't want a bunch of random strings and noises coming out because this pedal is adding so much gain and so much distortion that it's gonna get really muddy really fast. A sound like this is super wide. Think of it almost like you're using a paint roller instead of a paint brush. You can still be accurate with a paint roller, but you're taking up a lot of space, so you need to be intentional about what you're choosing to play. As another example, like we go back to this G sharp minor 9 chord that we were playing a second ago, that voicing does not work with a fuzz sound like this. Obviously, it completely falls apart because the distortion and the fuzz that I'm adding can't handle those intervals. But what it can do is track more simple intervals like thirds and fifths and octaves, and it gives you an even wider sound. In this instance, I have a sound, I have a tone that is not in my hands. There's nothing about my hands that are creating that fuzz sound. But I do have to have the hands, so to speak, to play to this sound and to get the most out of it. There is a technique. There's a shift in your approach. There's a shift in the colors that you choose, the notes that you choose, the voicings that you choose, and even how you choose to attack the guitar based off of this sound. The two things go hand in hand. This is why tone is not just in your hands. It's sort of a combination of your hands and what you're choosing to put into your rig. It's all this sort of symbiotic organism. Obviously, this is not a tone that I can get with just my hands. I'm borrowing this delay from a friend of mine. It's the Zen delay from Erica Synths. It's kind of a synth company's take on an interesting delay. It's got a tube in it, which is pretty rad. But when we're using time-based effects, reverbs, delays, or modulations to create these different textures and these soundscapes, you really have to change the way you're playing the guitar, but in a different way than what we did with the fuzz. With a sound like this, where I've got this long, never-ending, repeating delay that's sort of building this like landscape, this foundation underneath me, I have to make really intentional choices because everything that I play is gonna get repeated infinitely. The more I turn that feedback knob up, it's just gonna keep going. So not only do I have to avoid playing wrong notes, but I have to avoid playing notes that are gonna start to clash, you know, intervals that'll start to rub. Being more intentional about my voicings. Where am I playing on the neck? How am I pulling the sounds out of the guitar? What pickups am I using? All of these things work together to create your tone, your sound. And this is what I love about guitar is every single person out there who plays guitar has their own unique sound. You have your own tone. I could not ever sound like any of my guitar heroes, no matter how much I practice or how hard I tried, whether or not I bought all of the exact gear. You could put me on stage in front of anyone's rig and I'm not gonna sound like them on their rig. I'm gonna sound like me on their rig. And I think that's where this idea of tone in the hands comes from, because we all have a specific sound. We have like a fingerprint, the way we play certain notes, the voicings that we choose, our phrasing, our rhythms, all of this stuff is unique to us and it changes over time. It develops with us as guitar players. But that's not the whole picture, that's only part of it. The other part of it is the tools that we use to create that sound, that tone, the guitars, the amps, the pedals, the speakers, the strings, the pickups, all of this stuff matters to some degree or another. And when you pair that with years of practice and years of listening and years of developing your sound on the guitar, when you can take these tools, you can understand how to use them, understand how to get the sound that's in your head out of your speakers, that's where the hands come in. But I wanna know what you think. Let me know in the comment section down below. This video is not sponsored by anyone or anything like that. I'm not trying to highlight any specific piece of gear. If you want to support the channel though, I do have several video courses for sale you can check out in the description box down below, and please subscribe while you're down there. If you enjoyed the video, let me know by leaving a like and thumbs up and maybe a comment. What do you think about this whole idea in the comment section down below? My name is Rhett Shull. Thank you so much for watching and I'll catch you on the next one.